When most people think of the Vikings, they imagine terrifying raids on monasteries, plundering gold, and leaving villages in flames. While raiding was indeed a part of Viking activity, it was not the foundation of their entire economy. In reality, the Norse built a complex and adaptive system of trade, craftsmanship, and agriculture that sustained their communities and allowed their culture to thrive. To understand how the Vikings truly made money, we must look beyond the battlefield and into the markets, workshops, and farms of the north. The Viking world stretched across a vast network that reached from Scandinavia to the British Isles, down into continental Europe, and as far as the Middle East. Their longships were not only weapons of war but also the vessels of commerce. These ships carried furs, iron, amber, and slaves to distant markets where they exchanged them for silver, silk, spices, and wine. Silver, in particular, was the lifeblood of Viking trade. Rather than using coins with fixed values, Vikings relied on hack silver, cut pieces of silver weighed out for transactions. This flexible form of currency reflected the fluid nature of their trade system and allowed them to integrate seamlessly into diverse markets across Europe and beyond. Agriculture formed the backbone of everyday life in the Viking homelands. The majority of people were farmers who worked small plots of land, growing barley, rye, oats, and vegetables. These staples were essential for feeding families, producing ale, and sustaining livestock. Cattle, sheep, and pigs not only provided food, but also hides, wool, and bone materials that could be used at home or traded abroad. Farming was risky, with harsh winters and unpredictable weather, but it provided the foundation of stability on which the more adventurous aspects of the Viking economy could flourish. Craftsmanship also played a central role. Viking artisans were skilled metalworkers, woodcarvers, and jewelers. Their work was not only functional but also decorative, often infused with the intricate designs of Norse art. Weapons, tools, jewelry, and household goods were produced for local use and for export. The quality of Viking craftsmanship made these goods valuable in international trade, helping spread Norse culture far beyond Scandinavia. Local markets and seasonal trading fairs were hubs of economic activity. Villages and towns across Scandinavia developed into bustling centers where goods were exchanged. Places like Hedeby in Denmark and Birka in Sweden became renowned for their role as international trade hubs. Merchants from distant lands brought exotic goods, while local producers sold what they had grown, crafted, or harvested. These markets were not only economic centers but also cultural crossroads where ideas, technologies, and stories were exchanged alongside material goods. While raiding brought sudden bursts of wealth, it was trade and production that created long-term prosperity. The Viking economy thrived because it was diversified, relying not just on conquest but on the steady rhythm of farming, the ingenuity of craftsmen, and the expansive networks of merchants. This combination of activities gave the Vikings the resilience to endure challenges and the resources to expand their influence across continents. If farming and craftsmanship anchored daily survival, trade expanded the Viking economy into something much greater. The Norse were not isolated warriors of the north. They were deeply connected to global commerce. At the heart of this system stood the trading towns, or emporia, which became essential to their prosperity. Hedeby, located near the base of the Jutland Peninsula, is often described as one of the most important Viking trade centers. Its location allowed merchants to connect the North Sea and the Baltic Sea through a short overland route. Goods flowed in from England, Frankish territories, and beyond, then traveled east toward the Baltic and the Slavic lands. Archaeological excavations reveal a town buzzing with life, workshops producing beads, blacksmiths forging tools, and merchants weighing silver. Birka, in present-day Sweden, was another key hub, serving as a gateway for trade deep into the Scandinavian interior. The Vikings' geographic position gave them a strategic advantage. Scandinavian coasts and rivers acted as natural highways, linking the cold north to the wealth of the east and south. They exploited these routes with remarkable skill. By sailing down the rivers of Russia, Viking merchants, known as Varangians, reached the rich markets of Byzantium and the Islamic caliphates. There, they exchanged northern furs, honey, and slaves for silk, glassware, and most importantly, silver dirhams. Thousands of these Islamic coins have been found buried in Viking hoards, clear evidence of how far their commercial reach extended. Not all Viking trade was long distance. Regional exchange was equally vital. Farmers brought butter, cheese, and hides to local markets, where craftsmen might sell iron tools or jewelry. Barter remained common, especially in smaller settlements, though the use of hack silver as a flexible currency was spreading. The combination of barter and silver transactions allowed the Vikings to adapt to whatever system dominated in the regions they traded with. The diversity of Viking trade goods reveals much about their economy. Furs were among the most valuable exports, highly sought after in the courts of Europe and the Middle East. Amber from the Baltic coasts was prized for jewelry and amulets. Iron tools and weapons demonstrated not just military might, but also skilled metallurgy, which other cultures depended on. On the other side of the exchange, imported items like wine, silk, and spices were luxury goods that added prestige to Viking chieftains and kings, reinforcing their social power at home. Another crucial, though grim, part of Viking trade was slavery. Captives taken in raids or warfare were often sold in markets stretching from Dublin to Constantinople. Enslaved people were valuable commodities, fueling both local economies and international commerce. While morally troubling by today's standards, slavery was deeply embedded in Viking society and cannot be ignored as a significant element of their wealth. At the top of this economic web were the elites, jarls, and kings, who controlled long-distance trade routes, taxed markets, and organized expeditions. Yet the system relied on ordinary farmers, craftsmen, and merchants whose daily work kept goods moving. This layered economy meant that wealth did not flow only from plunder. It was cultivated, transported, and exchanged in countless ways across the Viking world. Beyond trade and farming, the Viking economy was also driven by systems of exchange that went beyond simple commerce. At its heart, Norse society was built on networks of obligation, reciprocity, and reputation. Wealth was not only measured in silver or goods, but also in honor, loyalty, and the ability to provide for one's followers. Gift-giving was one of the most important economic practices. Chieftains and kings often distributed wealth gained from raids or trade to their warriors, allies, and dependents. This practice, known as ring-giving, helped secure loyalty and strengthen the bonds of leadership. The economy of prestige ensured that goods flowed through society in ways that maintained social order and reinforced hierarchies. Receiving treasure was not simply about material gain. It was a public display of belonging to a powerful network. At the community level, Viking economies were sustained by cooperation. Neighbors shared resources, labor, and tools, particularly during the most demanding times of the year, such as harvests or shipbuilding. This system of mutual support allowed small farming communities to survive in the harsh climates of Scandinavia. It also created a sense of obligation that tied households together in webs of trust and expectation. Law and governance also played a role in shaping the economy. The Thing, the Viking assembly, functioned not only as a political gathering, but also as a marketplace of ideas and resources. Disputes over trade, property, or inheritance were settled there, ensuring stability and predictability in economic life. By maintaining order, the legal system safeguarded trade routes and markets, encouraging merchants to invest in long-distance ventures. The role of women in the Viking economy was far more significant than many imagine. While men often engaged in trade, exploration, or warfare, women managed farms and households in their absence. They were responsible for producing textiles, one of the most essential commodities in Viking trade. Cloth and garments served as both practical goods and valuable items of exchange. Archaeological finds suggest that women had legal rights to property and could inherit wealth, making them active participants in the circulation of goods and resources. Religion and ritual also influenced economic life. Offerings to the gods often included valuable goods, symbolizing both devotion and the redistribution of wealth. Sacred sites could attract gatherings where trade accompanied worship, blurring the line between spiritual duty and commercial activity. By combining raiding, farming, craftsmanship, trade, and complex systems of reciprocity, the Vikings developed a remarkably resilient economy. Their ability to adapt to barter in local markets, to weigh silver in international trade, and to weave social ties through gift-giving made them far more than warriors of legend. They were pragmatic entrepreneurs, skilled negotiators, and community builders who turned the challenges of their environment into opportunities for prosperity. The wealth of the Viking Age was not born solely from violence. It grew from soil tilled by farmers, hands of skilled artisans, keels of trading ships, and the networks of trust that bound communities together. This balance of force, commerce, and cooperation is what allowed the Norse world to flourish and leave an enduring mark on history.